Thank you very much for attending this seminar. This is our second seminar in our series that is sponsored by the Data Mining Center and the Teaching and Learning Center. Today's presenter is Dr. Koubaa. He has going to be talking to you about how to write an effective and good quality research project proposal. Dr. Anis has a lot of experience in this area. He has submitted quite a lot of projects, and he has acquired funding from NPSTI and CAT. So we look forward to have a very nice and fruitful seminar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bassett. I would like to thank you for this invitation. I am pleased to be here to present this seminar about writing research proposal. I hope that I will provide the added value you expect from this seminar. So, maybe, sorry if I will be a little bit quick because of the time limitation, because usually this presentation maybe can span over maybe 2 hours, but we can have kind of discussions because just to fit the 1 hour of the seminar. Okay, so the presentation will be about writing research proposal, but I'm going to focus on the NPST program as a model. Actually, most of the things that I will talk about, NPST is the National Program of Science and Technology and also Innovation. That is, this is the program that is defined for Saudi universities for the submission of the project, to which we submitted the projects as a university at that time. And this model is generic. I mean, even if, for example, if you submit to CAT or here to Prince Sultan University, I mean, there are common things. But why I use this, because I made a seminar on this, and also because it is comprehensive. To examine most of the items that you can find in other research proposals. So first, I'm going to give a brief overview about what is NPST and the steps to write a research proposal for NPST. So start by the learning outcomes of this lecture. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes?
This is Ms. Rurijan.
Yes, we just started. Do you see the slides? And do you hear the voice?
I do not see the slides, but I can see you.
Okay.
I'll try to turn on the
Okay.
Thank you.
So when you see the slides, that's it has not you.
Yes. Yes, we can now see the slides.
Okay, very good. I'm just resuming because just started. So I'm just telling that I'm going to make a presentation about how to write a research proposal, and I will be focusing on the NPST program. NPST, it stands for National Program for Science and Technology and Innovation. That is, this is the research program for Saudi universities. This is the umbrella under which research projects are submitted in Saudi universities. And I choose this model because it is comprehensive, and of course it's generic. So if you submit to CAT or to Prince Sultan or to any other funding channel, I mean, most of the items that you find here, you can find them in other proposal models. So I'm going to make a brief overview about NPST and the steps to write the research proposal for that program, and without also loss of generalities, as already said. The learning outcomes of this presentation is that at the end, inshallah, you will be aware of the tips to write a successful research proposal and be aware of the evaluation criteria. Here I'm going to take as example the evaluation criteria of the NPST program and the best practices for writing a research proposal. So the National Program for Science and Technology, so the objective was to promote scientific research in Saudi University. I think it started in 2007, the first bunch of projects that was proposed under this umbrella, and also encouraging distinguished scientific research. And I think the experience was successful because from 2007 until now, Actually, a lot of interesting projects were submitted, and the research output at Saudi universities has improved a lot. And also providing research framework for funds and for competencies in Saudi universities. I heard some news that maybe there is a project at the Ministry of Higher Education to include private universities in these kind of programs, and this will be very beneficial for us because it gives a lot of flexibility and projects up to 2 million for funding. So it has several strategic areas, so researchers can submit in one of these strategic areas, water, oil and gas, and so for computer science there is information technology, and for engineering and computer science also there is electronics, communication and photonics, there is space aeronautics, and several other areas related to different disciplines. Okay. Now writing a research proposal. The first question is from where to start. Of course, we can maybe we can start from looking for the template and just writing the proposal, but I think there is a step before doing that. So first of all, don't forget that writing a research proposal is a competition, and it's when we submit to big programs, competitive programs, the acceptance rate can be as low as 10 to 20%. So you may write a very good proposal, but might not be accepted, and in this kind of situation, maybe the reviewers will try to find any drawback or limitation to make the proposal not successful. So it's actually very important to take into account every point in the proposal to have most likely the chance to get granted an award or fund for your project. So the component for success, of course, the big share is for the scientific ability of the researchers and the scientific interest of the proposal, but also there is a big proportion that is related to the writing skills of the proposal. Okay, you may be a very good researcher, you have a very good result, but failing in writing the proposal effectively may actually lead to rejection very easily. So, from where to start, in my opinion, when you want to start writing a proposal, especially in competitive programs, you have to start from the evaluation criteria. How the reviewers are going to evaluate you in order to understand what are you going to provide them in your proposal. For example, in the MPST, they have 3 criteria. Okay, they don't write too much. Maybe it's 1 or 2 pages at maximum for the review of the proposal, but it's very well focused. You have 5 points for the first criteria, that is quality of proposed research, impact of proposed program, and path to success. You have to understand first what is this about and how to meet these criteria in the proposal. So I'm going to start from this criteria and then show how we can build the proposal based that satisfies these criteria as much as possible. So the first criteria, that is the quality of the proposed research, it has 3 pillars. That is the innovation of the proposal, the contribution of the proposal, and the relevance of the proposal to the scope of the program or to the tracks that you are going to submit to. So innovation and contribution are not necessarily the same, because you can have a good contribution, but the level of innovation is not sufficient. So you have really to think about what is the innovation and what is the contribution, and make it explicit and clear in your project. I'm going to give some examples later. And the relevance, of course, because usually when you submit to competitive programs, they have specified tracks. So you have to demonstrate that your project fits a particular track, and this must be clear. Because anything ambiguous in that respect may actually easily lead to rejection, or at least to the revision of your proposal. The second criteria, the impact of the proposed program, and here it has 5 elements. How to evaluate the impact of the proposed project, the level of discovery advanced. Okay, what is the level of discovery that you are going to provide in this project? So the impact is how interesting this project at the end will be, the outcome of the project. So the impact on the institution, how the institution will get benefit from the project. This must be clarified. For example, you are going to make a new research lab for the institution out of this project. You are going to have a new infrastructure. You are going to have new hardware or software resources. This must be also clarified. The promotion on research, infrastructure, education, and partnership. How your research proposal maybe would contribute to the teaching and learning process. How it contribute to promoting the infrastructure of the hosting institution. The benefits to society. Because usually when you do a research project, you attempt to solve a real problem. So how your solution will be beneficial for the society. The dissemination plan, publications, patents, the research outcomes must be clearly specified in order to demonstrate that your project has an important impact. And finally, the path to success, which is also a critical criteria, okay? It includes the time span of your project, the resources that you are going to use, and here the resources must not be underestimated or overestimated. You must show that you need these resources in order to run your project. The management plan, you have also to consider possible failure issues, and if they occur, how are you going to deal with them, and also the cost of the project. We are going to go through these different elements all along the presentation. So all these elements must be clearly satisfied. In order, for example, you have to, when you specify the resource or the cost, it must be well justified with the objectives and the scope of the project. Sometimes you might get to revise your proposal because the cost is underestimated. They say, for example, the current resource that you propose is not sufficient, you have to add some other resources, or you have to increase the cost, you have to reduce the cost. So everything should be well justified. So I start by giving some general guidelines about the relevance with some examples. So the relevance of the project should be within the approved tracks and subtasks of the strategic technology area. There is, for example, in the case of MPST, there is strategic priorities for information technology program. This is related to computer science. They refer that there are 4 subtracks: speech language, high performance computing, computer systems and networks, software engineering, and innovative systems. So first of all, before writing the proposal, try to identify which of these strategic priorities for information technology program. In some other cases, like in Princeton University, we don't have priorities, so things are more flexible. But in the cases when there are priorities, you have really to make sure, because you might be rejected because you can have a very good proposal, but it's out of the scope, so cannot be considered for review under the umbrella of that program. This is, for example, another example for strategic priorities related to wireless, to electronics communication and photonics technology programs. So you have wireless communication and sensor networks, information security, lasers and their applications, and recommended technologies. So it's really important to check the relevance of your project with respect to available tracks and subtracks. The originality of the proposal, it should not be submitted elsewhere. The proposed project is not already supported previously or submitted to another funding program. You have to respect the budget and the time limitations. So in the case of MPST, it's 2 million Saudi riyal within 24 months maximum. And very important is to choose your team appropriately. For example, in the case of MPST, you should not have more than 6 expert members, including the PI. You should include graduate students, and the PI should be a researcher holding a PhD. All these are like common features for projects. So what I actually recommend in that respect, choosing the right team is a critical point for the success of the project. You don't choose your teammate because you are friends or because you know them or because we want to work with each other, but is that they can actually fulfill a task in the project. Otherwise, the PI will be in trouble after a certain amount of time of not being able to run the task, for example, by people that are not skilled in the area of the project. So actually, the selection of the team is a critical point for guaranteeing or at least minimizing the risk of the execution of the project. The proposal language, it must be very well written. Okay, some project may actually be rejected because of the writing style. It doesn't give a good impression to the reviewers if the writing is not very well elaborated. So it must be done according to writing standards. Now, writing the research proposal. After understanding what are the evaluation criteria, you go to the template and you try to understand the different sections. Of course, in most of the template, there is a summary in English, there is a summary in Arabic. Sometimes if you make a revised version, you have to make a response letter to the reviewers. And there is an introduction, project objectives, literature review, description of the proposed project. This is template for MPST, but it's common to most of the other projects. We are going to go through the different sections and provide the guidelines how to write them effectively with respect to the evaluation criteria that we enumerated before. So, project deliverables, the value to the kingdom, project execution, and the research team defining the reference and misuse. So I'm going to take this project as an illustrative project to present some examples. This is one of the projects that was accepted in MPST. It's already finished and completed, alhamdulillah. So the idea of the project at that time was to, at that time I was working on sensor network, so give you some of my experience about how sometimes the scope to the tracks. So I was working purely on sensor network. I didn't know anything about robotics, but at that time there was only the track about artificial intelligence and robotics for the funding. So here the idea was actually to merge my expertise on sensor network with something new, that is artificial intelligence and robotics. And alhamdulillah, it was fine, because otherwise if you submit on sensor networks only, maybe it will not fit the scope of the project. So here the idea is to make tracking and monitoring system that combines both technologies in order to build a surveillance system. Okay, so the first challenge is first to propose a title for the proposal. And the title is very important. The title should give a clear picture about what proposal is about. Okay, it must be clear and appealing. Usually it's good to choose an acronym for the project title. Okay, and must provide an overview on the research proposal scope. The title usually takes like 10 words, 50 words, more or less, but it must be comprehensive and present the main idea of the project. So, after giving the title, so there is the summary, and the summary for me is the most critical part. That in that part, the reviewer may have either a positive opinion or a negative opinion on the project. It must be clear and it must present specific information. Because some people talk about background sometimes, they talk about side issues, but I want to understand a couple of points. First of all, what is the motivation of your project? Why your project is interesting? Why do we care about the problem? This must be very clear. You can even give some statistical or financial information about several projects running in that area and how many actually companies are spending for this research area in order to motivate the problem that is really related to a real problem in the world. Okay? And then you go into technical aspect by presenting the problem statement. What are the problems you are trying to solve? Don't forget that a research project is intended to solve a research problem. And the research problem must be related to some real-world problems in order to be interesting and motivating. After presenting the problems, you give an idea about what approach are you going to follow to solve the problem. Okay? Why we give the idea about the approach is to give an impression that you are an expert in the area, you know the problem, and you have some ideas on how to tackle the problem effectively. So you have to give some information about how I'm going to solve this problem. Not necessarily to give the result or the final result, but at least to give an impression, this is my strategy on how to solve the issue. And everything should be compact, because usually you are not allowed to add more than 500 words or 1,000 words in maximum. So it's really a challenging part to write a summary. Don't forget also that you have to write what is the impact of the research. Okay, I'm going to solve this problem and it will have this impact, and this is related to the criteria number 2. So I'm going to try to respond to the first and the second criteria, and maybe the third criteria, or in the summary, through these different items. Of course, you may have some other information to add, but these are really important in order to convince the reviewer from the very beginning that my proposal is worth reading and worth actually being accepted. What is the impact of the research, the impact in terms of scientific output, the impact about solving the real problem afterwards, the impact on the society. You can say this in a compact way. And finally, you give a brief information about the expected result from the project. Okay, this is about the abstract. Then we go to the introduction. The introduction is kind of an extended abstract where we can write more clearly your idea. So now if the reviewer is convinced about the summary, he will be motivated to read other parts. If he is not convinced, maybe he will try to find pitfalls in order to justify his negative intuition. So this really, the summary is for sure will be completely read by the reviewer. So we try to make the best effort in this in order to actually make him more enthusiastic for reading the remaining part. For the introduction, you have more space here, so you can write a background about the proposal, okay? Background, if there is a need to write information about if the field is new, maybe you have to write some information that introduce this new field to the reviewer, because sometimes the reviewer is out of the scope. Usually they are expert, but you don't know. Sometimes the reviewer doesn't understand. So try to write very simple English. Do not use too many technical words in the introduction, okay? Because if you want to, so you actually do not understand something only if you are able to explain it to non-expert people. So right, it's like you are explaining it to non-expert people in a very simple way and very convincing way. You have also to specify the importance and justification of the research topic. Why your research topic is important. Of course, you should have said this in the abstract, but here you can elaborate more. You have to talk about the problems to be investigated. I'm going to have, for example, in our project, we will have, for example, a problem related to localization, another problem related to cooperation, and I will explain why these problems are important and how they are going to be tackled. And then you outline the expected contribution and their extents. What are the most important results? And finally, the scope of the work. The context where the result can be applied and can be effective. These are some points, of course, you may add others, but these are some guidelines that help you maybe to write the introduction. In the introduction, you have to satisfy or you have to consider the first criteria of evaluation, and second, after writing the introduction, read your introduction and check this point. You have to clarify the innovation. Why your proposal is innovative. And you can write sentence. Our proposal is innovative in terms of, and you write it explicitly. Don't let the reviewer find out the innovation by himself, but let him go directly to the innovation. Write it explicitly. The contribution of the proposal is this point and this point and this point. And we will provide innovation in this point. It makes it explicit. Then he will evaluate, of course. When you have a claim, he will try to check whether your claim is correct or not. Afterwards, when you propose what methodology. But at least you give him, this is my roadmap. This is where I want to go, and this is why we are innovative and we will provide an added value. So there are 2 points that are important. The innovation and the expected contribution, and you have to make a difference because you may have the contribution in something not innovative. And you may have innovative ideas, but you cannot find the contribution. So you have to make a difference between that. And also clarify the relevance. You can say that our project falls into the track of this track in the strategic priorities. The second criteria, you demonstrate the level of discovery advanced, the benefit to society, how the society are going to benefit from the result, and this is actually in the scope of the work at the end, and potential impact on the institution. All this you can say briefly and literally because it will be explicitly said afterwards in the objectives. Now, after completing the introduction, you go to the third point, that is project objective. I'm going very fast. Are you following, or should you have some questions? It's fine? Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay, so for the project objectives, usually when it's written project objective, people focus more on technical objectives. In my opinion, objectives are beyond being technical because a research project can have objectives in different perspectives. It can have scientific or technical objectives, that is the most important part, but also it can have other objectives related to academic development, human resource development, and infrastructure development. Because when you have a research project, it's not just for producing research papers and new results, but also to develop the infrastructure of the university, to develop human resources, master students, undergraduate students. Okay? So this actually should be specified in the project objective. So in terms of technical objectives, you try to summarize the general objectives of the project, I mean the scientific output. So, in my opinion, the best way to do this is to decompose the project in what we call work packages. I have, for example, I define 3 work packages, 4 work packages, and for each work package you give a clear title or a clear name, and you subdivide your work package into a set of tasks. Okay? And of course, all the project will be a set of work packages, and then you make the integration in order to reach the final outcome of the project. I'm going to show an example here. And in each work package, you clarify the scientific added value and contributions of the project, and stress again how this project will be innovative. So this is an example. For example, in the project about sensor and robot surveillance system, we actually choose to have 4 work packages. Okay, the number is not strict. I mean, you can choose any number, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending, but it should not be too much, because I think between 3 and 5, 6 maximum is kind of reasonable number of work packages in a relatively big project. And it has a title, like for example here we have work package related to localization and tracking, and then we subdivide this work package into tasks. So now from this you can understand that we have a big package that is subdivided into tasks. We will make a literature review on that area, then we will design a new approach for localization, then we will make an implementation, then we will make an evaluation. So this is a defined work package that will be done within the project. Another work package, for example, is robot task allocation. It has also other tasks. And the final outcome of the project will consist of integrating all these work packages together and producing the final project output. Okay, so just from this example, what I would like to show is it's good to subdivide the technical objective into work packages and subdivide the work packages into tasks. So this will be clear to the reviewer what are the different technical contributions to be provided in the project. Of course, if you want to elaborate more by writing an explanation of this, you will have the opportunity to write this afterwards, or for example, in the case of MPSD, there is a complete part about research methodology where you develop in detail, okay, these work packages in the project methodology execution. So my recommendation when you write your technical objective is to be specific and clear. Don't write like big words, but just write what you are going to effectively do in the project. Broad objectives sometimes are confusing, okay? Don't let things confusing. Try to be very specific, because afterwards, in the evaluation, you will be evaluated on what you have written here. You will have a template where, for the progress report, they will say, okay, with respect to what you defined in the research proposal, what you did. So if you are broad, you will find difficulties to explain what you did. But here, for example, if you say literature review of localization algorithm, you know that you will have to provide a technical report that provides literature review. So it will be easy to explain. Design a new localization algorithm. It's very clear task. You say, we have designed this is the output, this is the algorithm, and so on. So this is how you are going to be evaluated later. Emphasize theoretical and practical objectives. So usually if you have practical outcomes, you have to emphasize them as well. Technology transfer, if any. And emphasize the expertise of the PI and associate researcher. And this is related to criteria 3. For example, when you write your work packages, you can write a small paragraph about the researcher involved in the project, and their expertise with respect to the task that you specify. You say, for example, the PI is expert, for example, in localization, and he will be able to deal with this task. The associate researcher is expert in this. He has a certain number of applications on this. So here you will give confidence that the research team that you are selected and the different work packages are compatible with each other, and this gives an idea, a clear idea about the path to success. So sometimes they say, we don't know this researcher how it can actually contribute to the work packages that you specify. So try to be explicit in that point so you convince the reviewer in the beginning. Respond to criteria, and yes, now the second point is academic development in the green on top right side. You can write a paragraph about academic development as an objective of the project. For example, the project will contribute to knowledge transfer from the university to the society, scientific dissemination, what is the expected number of publications that you intend to produce, and whether you will have collaboration and partnership with other institutions. This is also falls in the context of academic development, university to industry collaboration, so some projects can actually bring collaboration with the industry. So it's really important to specify this as in the objectives, or maybe in the introduction, but also in the objective, it can fit well. Because one of the objectives of research project is to open the doors to the outside collaborations. So you can specify this as an objective. Okay. Another objective also human resource development, and this is very important because when you have a research project, the most thing that you should have in mind is to involve students, whatever master's students, graduate students, PhD students, because without students, the project cannot be executed. Okay? Usually senior members, they can bring ideas, they can manage the work, they can coordinate with people, but making implementation or making the real work, we should have graduate students and undergraduate students involved in the project. And of course, they must be carefully selected so they can actually help in the success of the project. Okay? And also, it's important to have research engineers in addition to students, because in some projects with a lot of practical work and a lot of resources, like in case of sensor networking or robotics, you need engineers that take care about these resources, maintenance, and stuff like this. So you don't rely on yourself as a PI to do all the stuff, because as a PI, most of your work will be coordination and maybe supervising people or writing research paper at most. So you must really make sure that you have enough human resources to run your project. If it is small project, it's not a problem, but if it is big project, you will be in trouble if you don't really plan effectively your human resources in advance. So that's an important point if you want to go for the advantages of large projects. Infrastructure development, this is also an important objective, and response to the criteria number 2, which is the impact of the research program or the research project. And one of the impacts is the impact on the institution, on the hosting institution. So here, you try to clarify to what extent this project will enhance the infrastructure of research and education, such as promoting facilities, instrumentation, networks, and partnerships. But there are potential impacts on the institution. For example, you may say, I will have this amount, this budget for buying resources to establish a research lab at the university that can promote, that can be useful for the student. It can promote teaching through, for example, establishing new courses related to the project. So you can write whatever things are appropriate in this area. You can also plan to design and implement demonstrators and prototypes, which is very important for the university. For example, you can have prototypes on cloud, on sensor networking, on the area of the project. This is about the objective. Any question? Okay. The third point is the literature review. Okay, that is an important point as well, because in this part you have to clarify, or you have to demonstrate your expertise first. You will be running a project, and you have to be aware of previous works, not to reinvent the wheel. So this is a core section in the proposal, must be comprehensive and well focused. failing to write the literature review effectively may be critical. And it will reflect the investigator's perception of the current state and the knowledge of the field. And usually in the literature review, it's not sufficient just to write a summary of papers, but you have to provide your critics on these papers and clarify what will be the contribution of your project with respect to the existing works. So it's not sufficient just to make like a naive description of the existing works, but you have to clarify the contribution. So the literature review is to clarify you the contribution of your project with respect to the previous or to the current state of knowledge. So some guidelines here. First of all, you have to make sure to cite recent and up-to-date references. Imagine that you write a proposal where the most recent reference is in 2005. So most likely the project will not be accepted. Okay, why? Because the reviewer will say, all your references are outdated. Okay, this also works for research papers, but it's more critical in research projects. So you have to make sure that you can actually cite all the references if they are relevant, but you have to make sure that you cite not only these references, but also of good quality. Okay, journal papers or papers that are give structure to the literature review. Sometimes the literature review is very long, so you try to subdivide it into subsections. Okay, especially if the project is big and has several tracks, you have to provide the literature review on every track of or every work package of the project. For example, in our case, you have localization, you have mental task allocation. Maybe you have to provide the literature review on both tracks separately, so we structure the related work in the right and appropriate way. Discuss previous works and clarify your contribution in comparison to them, okay? And make a deep analysis of the related works without being verbose and too descriptive. And of course, you should never copy and paste from other sources, because this is actually not, this will be kind of plagiarism. So you have to write all the literature review from your own work, okay? Now, the major part of the proposal, that is the description of the proposed project. And here you are going to present the methodology, okay, that is the approaches that you are going to follow to achieve your objectives, and how are you going to run the tasks and the phases of the project. So when you describe the project, you try to provide sufficient information of the work to be undertaken, and describe in detail how the research question raised by this proposal will be tackled. So sometimes you have the opportunity to write in your way, and in some other program like MPST, they give you some forms to fill in, okay? So in either cases, you have to provide sufficient details for responding to the research questions and convincing the reviewers that you are going to follow the right path in order to reach your objectives. Because this part is very much related to the criteria number 3, okay, that is the path to success. You have to convince the reviewer that I'm going to succeed, most likely in this project. Okay, and this will be done through the description of the proposed project. Okay, so basically you need also to provide a clear description of experimental methods, procedures, as well as expected outcomes. Some pitfalls, for example, you say, this is the research problem, and we will investigate this approach to solve this problem. And so, most likely in competitive program, it doesn't work like this. Even if you give some intuition, intuition doesn't work. You have to be explicit, and sometimes, and it happened for us, they tell you we would like to have preliminary results. Which is, yes, one time we got to have a revision on a proposal. It's not because we did not specify the approaches, but there are no preliminary results. And we had them, but we didn't present. So we have to make a response letter responding to the reviewers that these are our, so in competitive programs, they may go to a point that you don't anticipate. And in some others, they go even beyond this. They request even partnerships with industrials, more publications, they require maybe patents, or even real products. So it depends on the level of difficulty of the program, okay? But basically, it's good that you present even all the details related to the approaches that you are going to follow. And if you have preliminary results, this will give more confidence to the reviewers that you are the right people to solve this problem. Okay? I'm going to talk about this later. Okay, so the first part in the MPST model is to specify the approaches, the tasks, and the phases. And this is a key section for the success of the proposal. Okay, so we have different forms at this level to define the phase. The phase of the project are pretty much similar to the work packages that we defined in the objectives, and demonstrate how the project objective will be achieved. I'm going to show you the different forms. You can even use them in other types of projects if you want, or just having them as guidelines for writing your approaches in other templates. Okay, so this is an example of how we divided the phases in our project. So basically, and this is my personal view, I consider project management as a phase by itself, because it involves a lot of activities like buying resources, managing human resources, recruiting people. But it's optional. I mean, you can just focus on technical phases only, like a phase about preliminary study, design of localization, algorithms, design of cooperative application, and finally the implementation and experimental validation. I mean, you have to specify clear phases that you are going to follow in order to reach your ultimate objective, that is the final output of the project. And this is a table that where you specify the approach to follow. You write the objective, that is the work package, and then you describe what is your methodology to reach this objective. For example, localization and tracking. And here you make a short description and the main outcome of this objective. So for example, in this phase, we will first investigate the existing approach for localization. This is kind of to elaborate more on the different tasks that you have written in the objectives. I don't know if you remember this slide. We have written our work packages somewhere. Yes. So you are going to elaborate more and describe more how are you going to achieve the objective, that is localization and tracking, by doing the following tasks. So you write them in clear text in this form. Okay. And finally, try to give an overview what will be the result at the end. Short statement on the main result, and use the same for the other objectives. So at this step, you will make the reviewer understand, okay, the different objectives and work packages you are going to undertake, and your methodology in order to satisfy this objective. Okay, this is the first step in describing the proposal. This is another form that makes a mapping between the tasks and the phases. Okay. And the most important part in the description of the project is the research methodology. Okay, and here you are going to give a detailed roadmap, okay, which describes the steps to be followed by the research team in carrying out the research. Here there is also the assignment of tasks to the different team members, and that's why I said it's very important that you carefully select your team members for the effective execution of the project. Otherwise, who is going to be the trouble? Just the PI, because he is the interface with a funding institution. Okay, so it should be logically explained and defined to judge the validity and solidity of the method and means to use to achieve the research objectives. You describe the procedures, the techniques to be used with explanation, why these are considered the most suitable to research question. You provide a detailed description of the experiments if you will have, and measurements, the method to be used to collect data if you have data collection or analysis and interpretation. So you try to go as deep as possible. Don't be very broad, because if you are broad, you may not convince the reviewer that you are going to be able to solve your problem. And it's not bad also to discuss some of potential pitfalls and constraints that you may face in the project and provide alternative plans. So you may anticipate on the reviewer questions. Okay, if there are possible problems that may be faced in the project, it's also possible to discuss them. Maybe you say, in some cases, maybe we cannot acquire the technology. You plan to have, for example, expensive equipment, but you may say, if we don't receive this equipment, we may use simulation, for example, and you give another plan for the execution of the project. This is also possible. Because in some domains, it's not possible to acquire some of the technologies needed for running the project. So it's good to anticipate on the plans. So important issues here, as already said, the description of preliminary result obtained by research team is very strongly, I would say, recommended. Okay? From our experience, we got to make a revision because of not presenting preliminary result, and they say the path to success is not clear. Okay? It was explicit. And so the investigator, when you present preliminary result, you show that you have enough background and expertise on the topic, and you already dealt with this problem, and you have initial solution, but you want to go even further. So you give confidence to the reviewer about the feasibility of project, and this responds well to the criteria number 3, that is the path to success. As already said, the lack of preliminary result may cost the rejection in some cases not, but depends on the reviewer actually said. And management plan. So the management plan, it states the experience and scientific expertise of each of the members of the research team and its ability to carry out the assignments, okay, the tasks that you will undertake in the project. And this is strongly related to the path to success. I don't know what they mean, okay. And usually to write the management plan, it's very recommended to use Microsoft Project, Gantt charts. It's a professional tool for writing the management plan of the project. But in some other proposals, they can give you some templates. I'm going to show you a template like this. It's a template for writing the work plan of the project. But it's really recommended to use Microsoft Project or similar tools for writing a detailed management plan to your project. You have to clearly identify and outline the role of collaborators or consultations. Okay? Not just giving intuition on project, be careful not to give intuition on project outsourcing. So don't say I will rely too much on collaborators, on external consultations, because in this case it's like the project will be done outside. But you have to specify what is the contribution of consultation, why you need the consultant, okay? And it should be with limited percentage, maybe 20% or 15% of the human resource contribution to the project. Okay, so there are two forms for the management plans. The fourth form, the number 4, is how each member will be involved in executing the task of the project. And number 5, the work plan, is a Gantt chart showing the assignment of the different tasks over the whole project duration. So this is the management plan example. So you have team members, you start by the senior personnel, you write their names and their role, for example the PI, and the role and the duration. And of course this is critical because later on when you are going to write the progress report or the final report or the review report, okay, you have to write what each member did in the project. So the reviewer of the final report or the progress report will go back to your original proposal, check the planned activities, and will compare them to the executed activities. So don't Don't overestimate the activities or underestimate. Underestimating the activities, maybe it can go in final evaluation. But saying that someone will do too much work, but at the end, he did not produce the real output, this actually should be justified at least. Okay? So here, it's important to write the role of each member effectively, either it is senior personnel or other personnel like master students, PhD students. For master students and PhD students, it can be broad because sometimes you don't specify the names in advance. So you recruit the students based on your needs and based on the tasks that you would like to do in the project. And the project work plan, this is a Gantt chart where you write the different phases, okay, and the task name in each phase, and then people evolve, and then you make an estimation about the duration for each phase. Okay, you can see it can be overlap between the different phases. Okay, and this is also important because if you write for it after 6 months, you will have a progress report. So, for example, in this work plan, after 6 months, phase 2 should be completed, phase 3 should be started. Okay, in the evaluation, they will go back to this work plan and they will ask you what is the percentage of each task accomplished. So, and the percentage should actually be as close as possible to what you estimated in the plan. And if there is a derivation or deviation, you have to provide a justification. Okay, there is kind of flexibility. Sometimes you plan a task, but you may see that another task is more appropriate. So you may drop one task and add another task, but this should be justified, and made with some restrictions. It's not so flexible, because if you deviate too much from your proposal, it's like you evaluate the proposal was not valid. So even if there is a change, it must be minor, okay, and it must be justified. And here, another item in description of project is project deliverable. Okay, you are going to have a fund up to 2 million or less, depending on the research program. But what are you going to provide me? Okay, as compensation. So here you have to justify very well that the budget that will be spent will have an impact. And the impact, one way of measuring the impact is the deliverables. What are you going to deliver at the end? The outcomes. So you write clear statements about the expected, real, tangible, and measurable outcomes. I don't write I'm going to make, for example, to publish papers and something like broad. So try to be explicit, okay, in terms of the measurable outcomes that you're, even if you say I'm going to publish, you give an estimation. Okay, for example, 2, 3 journal papers in ISI journals, and you try to justify why this is possible. To give a clear confidence to the reviewer that the budget that they're going to spend will have an impact. So also the relationship to the project objective and linkage with goals of the concerned strategic technology program must be elaborated. The relation between the objectives and also the strategic objectives that are specified in the priorities. So what outcomes this project will bring? There are different types. There can be technical outcomes, which are the main contributions and innovation to be brought, technical reports to be written, and patents. Okay, these are technical outcomes. You can have academic outcomes. How many students are you expected to supervise? This is also important. Okay, I'm going to have a budget for the students, and this is related to the impact on the institution, okay, and the promotion of learning and teaching activity at the university. Okay, for example, you can say this project will allow us to have 1 PhD student or 2 master students or 3 master students or 3 undergrad students involved in the project. The publications and patents in ISI journals, books, conference papers. What is your expectation about prototypes to be implemented and tools to be produced? Simulation tools, software, experimental framework, demonstrators. dissemination events. This project maybe will allow you to organize seminars, to organize trainings, workshops, conferences, okay? So you try to enumerate all possible outcomes of the project. In MPSD, there is a mapping between the outcomes of the project and also the strategic technology program goals. The strategic technology program goals are already documented, so you have to identify 3 goals and make the mapping with the outcomes. This is an example about the program strategic goals for information technology and for electronic and communication photonics. The text is a bit small. For example, for information technology, to support an expanding and innovative KSA IT industry. Okay, to achieve IT capabilities to meet critical needs in the kingdom. So you try to choose, for example, if your proposal in the information technology, you choose 3 of these strategic goals, okay, and then from the from the expected outcomes you will provide in the project to make a mapping between 3 of these strategic goals and the outcomes of the project. And finally, or maybe not finally, the value to the kingdom. This is also important to justify for the budget that you are going to spend in research, how the kingdom will actually take benefit from these results. If you are just doing research for fun, it will not work. But basically, the research should contribute to the promotion of life in the kingdom. So here, we talk about the relevance to the industrial base in the area of technology concern or to other strategic sectors on the economy. Okay, how the research can actually contribute to improve the economy of the kingdom. Description of potential positive impact on the society, on the economy at large, as well as likely negative outcomes, if any. Benefits for education and training for Saudi students. The career development of researchers may also be outlined, and the targeted end users and the suitable mechanisms for utilization and implementation of the project deliverables. For example, you can specify, in our project we specified that the outcomes of the project can be used, for example, to find solutions for tracking pilgrims during Al-Hajj, for example. And that is possible. Of course, we wanted to do this several times, but there were several handicaps because going there and making the real experiments is not as easy as we might think. But one of our value to the kingdom that we have enumerated in the proposal was actually to find solution for pilgrim tracking. Okay, and actually our solution was based on this idea first, but we made a prototype, but we were not able actually to make it effectively there because of constraints that are beyond the project and beyond our capabilities. But this is the kind of the values that one research project may lead to the society. So for the project execution, it's related to the resources to be acquired for the project. You need to provide information on current and pending funding, on current or pending funding of the proposed project from any other source. This means that if you have existing resources from other projects, you have to clarify them. And what are your, this is for the current resources, the equipments and instrumentation that are already available in the institution. So you don't buy the same thing 2 times. If you have computers, if you have robots, if you have sensors already there, you have to say, this is our current infrastructure, and then we request this infrastructure. It must be justified. Okay? Detail of all request human resources, about equipments, material and consumables, transportation facilities, travel arrangement, and so the most important thing is here the equipments, the resources that you will need to run the project. This is a form. This is the request, the budget form for human resources and for also the equipments for the transportation for attending conferences. So basically, we fill a form similar to this, but also you have to justify. For example, if you say, I would like to have 400,000 Saudi riyals of budget for equipment, You have to provide a detailed justification what is the equipment that you need and why you need it. Okay? Because this money should be given based on your requirement for the project. And this is just the end of the proposal. This is kind of undertaking of the research team, signatures, and finally the reference section. You have to provide the references that you have used in the literature review or in the proposal. They must be up to date. They must be high quality references, comprehensive and complete, and also ready. And finally, you provide your CV. Okay? You provide the CV, and the CV must be, sometimes it's limited in number of pages, and must be well focused, provide sufficient information about the background of the researchers, their publications, and their publications. Okay, so we come to the end of the lecture. So, alhamdulillah, it was on time, just 1 hour, and we'll be happy to receive your question. Yes, I don't know if the women still are hearing us.
We are hearing you. Thanks for it. It was a really wonderful presentation and very important information.
Thank you.